You think money will solve everything? Wrong. This isn't a video about getting rich quick. It's a direct hit to the face of every financial illusion you've been sold. From the first 10 calories to the final $100 million, this journey reveals one brutal truth. The richer you get, the heavier the pressure. Freedom doesn't come with money, it comes with control. We don't exist to accumulate wealth. We exist to reclaim time, to make real choices, to live with power. If you think money is the goal, watch this until the end. You're about to discover what the ultra-rich never dare to say. It all begins with a small number the world dismisses. $10,000, not for its size, but for the power it returns to you. $10,000, it's not money, it's permission to choose. Everyone says 10K is nothing, but in truth, it frees you from psychological poverty, the trap that keeps you living in fear, dependency, and quiet suffering. $10 isn't a fortune, but it breaks your chains. It proves you can survive without begging. It shifts your identity from victim to owner. That number doesn't make you rich, but it stops life from crushing you with every unexpected event. It's the start of control. And once you taste control, you'll never want to go back to surviving. You'll want to shape your future, not just endure the present. 10K doesn't buy a home, but it buys calm. It lets you breathe when the car breaks down, when you get laid off, when life slaps you in the face. It doesn't solve everything, but it gives you pause. That space between chaos and reaction? That's power. And for the first time, you can make a choice, not out of desperation, but with intention. You can slow down without guilt, think clearly, and act strategically. That's not survival. That's self-command. 10K doesn't scream wealth, but it whispers autonomy. What matters most is this. $10 teaches you the value of every dollar. It doesn't teach you to spend. It teaches you to protect. You stop seeing money as an escape and start seeing it as a tool. It's your first taste of financial discipline. Not because you have a lot, but because you finally know what having something means. You stop acting on impulse. You start building with intention. No, you're not rich, but you're no longer easy to destroy. And that alone puts you in a different class of power. $100,000 when money becomes a weapon, not a destination. At 100K, you're no longer chained to your paycheck. You can say no to a job, not from arrogance, but because you're no longer financially imprisoned. You've built a buffer between yourself and desperation. Your decisions are no longer survival-based. You choose jobs that align with you. You explore options others can't afford to imagine. This is not just wealth. It's the first layer of freedom. The world opens up when your next meal isn't a question, and suddenly your time becomes yours. This is the moment when money stops being something you save. It becomes leverage. Compound interest isn't theory anymore, it's reality, and it punishes the slow. Every year of delay costs you years of freedom. Every dumb purchase is time stolen from your future self. At 100K, you understand the game. You're not working to survive. You're working to buy back time. You're working so your money can go out and work harder than you ever could. Most never make it here, not because they can't, but because they're seduced by convenience. A new car, a fancy trip, a better phone, they all sound reasonable, but they cost you momentum. If you resist the glitter trap, you rise into a financial tier where others don't understand your choices anymore. They think you're cheap, they think you're weird. But you're not playing for comfort, you're playing for control. And control beats comfort every time. $500,000, survival doesn't mean freedom. $500,000 lets you breathe easier. You can take breaks. You can stop counting every penny. But don't get it twisted, you still can't afford to mess up. One accident, one bad investment, one economic dip, and you're right back at the starting line. This level gives you room, but not immunity. You're still one crisis away from unraveling. You haven't escaped the system. You've just bought some better padding. This is the most dangerous tier of wealth. You have just enough to splurge, but not enough to make real mistakes. A poor investment won't hurt a millionaire, but it could wreck you. That's why most people fail here. They confuse comfort with victory. But this is just a hill, not the mountaintop. And most slip from here because they let up too soon. They thought the fight was over when it was only halftime. You begin to trade freedom for convenience. Bigger house, nicer car. Longer vacations, It all makes sense until the bills pile up. Suddenly, you're locked into a lifestyle that demands more income, more effort, more stress. You're still running, just in more expensive shoes. What looked like reward becomes obligation. And what felt like progress starts to feel like a trap. You didn't buy freedom, you bought upkeep. $1,000, financial freedom, or just the illusion of it? 1 million sounds like a dream, but it doesn't buy rest unless you're brutally disciplined. Yes, you could stop working, but if you lose control for even a moment, your dream dissolves. 1 million isn't what it used to be. And if you think it guarantees freedom, you're delusional. 1 million buys you optionality, not immunity. And every dollar you waste at this level is a silent retreat back to fear. You might not need a job, but without a plan, that million will bleed away. Lifestyle creep is lethal. Everything gets more expensive. Friends expect more. Family demands more. And you, if you're not grounded, will start to spend like someone who thinks the game is over. But it's not. This is just a pause before the next test. And if you fail that test, the price is brutal. 1 million doesn't make you powerful. It makes you a bigger target. You've just entered the shark-infested waters of real finance. You're a bigger fish, but still prey. The ocean doesn't care how long it took you to get here. It only asks one question. Can you stay afloat? If the answer is no, the fall will be swift and far more humiliating than your first climb. $5,000. Wealthy but still afraid. At this level, you finally begin to buy back time. You pay others to clean, to drive, to handle the things you despise. You no longer stress over utility bills or last-minute expenses. You feel like you've broken free. But here's the trap. The fear doesn't leave. It just changes shape. You're no longer afraid of being broke. You're afraid of losing what you've built. Every percentage dip in the market triggers anxiety. You've tasted stability. Now, the mere thought of losing it haunts you more than poverty ever did. You're rich, but still restless, still wired for threat. The cruel truth of finance: the richer you get, the more sensitive you become to loss. A 5% market drop doesn't just sting, it shreds your confidence. Even if you're not cashing out, you watch your net worth evaporate on paper. And suddenly, you don't feel in control anymore. The wealth you thought would liberate you has become a cage made of zeros. You're no longer chasing gains, you're guarding them with paranoia. What once felt empowering now fuels sleepless nights. And the worst part? Nobody warned you that the fear would scale with the fortune. Many people here enter emotional limbo. They no longer need to work, but they also can't fully let go. They've lost drive but gained obligation. They wander between ideas, uncertain if they should expand or preserve. They become trapped in their own indecision, not because of money problems, but because of mission loss. When survival is no longer the goal, purpose must take its place. But if you never defined one, you'll drift, armed with wealth, but without direction. You didn't retire, you stalled. And that limbo is more dangerous than poverty. At least, poverty keeps you moving. $10,000 when every door opens, but not without limits. At this stage, the world says you've won. You can live anywhere, do anything, or do nothing. You don't answer to bosses or bills. You say no without consequence. But then reality kicks in. You can afford almost everything, but not everything. Private jets? Still a stretch. Trophy real estate? Not yet. You're rich enough to peek into the world of the ultra-elite, but not to live there. And that leaves you stranded between classes, not poor, not limitless, just stuck. The freedom is real, but so is the ceiling. You didn't beat the game, you just reached a harder level. Many assume $10 million buys total freedom. It doesn't. It buys elite comfort, not limitless indulgence. You still budget, just differently. First-class flights? Sure. Private jet? Still reckless. Mega mansion? Maybe one. Global real estate portfolio? Still too risky. You have range, but not dominance. And when you realize there's always a room you can't enter, something shifts. You've climbed far, but you're still climbing. And that awareness begins to burn. You're not broke, but you're not beyond worry. You're not average, but you're not untouchable. You live in a strange space. Visible success, invisible restraint. The hardest truth? Money can't fix what festers beneath. At this level, you confront yourself. The noise dies down, and silence gets loud. Loneliness doesn't vanish. Regret doesn't evaporate. The mirror reflects more than success. It shows what you've postponed. You hoped money would erase pressure, sadness, emptiness, but those ghosts remain. You've run out of excuses. No more blaming circumstances. Now it's just you, and the parts of you that money couldn't heal. Freedom gives you the time to face your shadows, and they don't back down just because you're wealthy. $25,000, when running out of money is no longer the fear, but running out of meaning is. At this point, bankruptcy is nearly impossible unless you actively self-destruct. Expenses under $200K barely register. Recessions are mild inconveniences. Everything becomes affordable. But now something strange happens. You no longer fear losing money, you fear feeling nothing. The chase is over. You've won the game you were obsessed with. And suddenly, you look around and wonder, now what? When you can have anything, desire begins to die. The hunger that drove you fades. And in that silence, you face a new enemy. Boredom. Not the lazy kind, but the existential one that money can't distract you from anymore. You start to realize the mountaintop is lonely. You've bought everything you once dreamed of, yet you feel hollow. You don't know what you want anymore. The problem isn't lack, it's too much. Every dream fulfilled leaves behind an echo. Every purchase feels less exciting. Every vacation feels repetitive. You once lived for the next win. Now the scoreboard is full and meaningless. You scroll luxury listings without enthusiasm. You plan expensive trips that feel empty. This isn't depression, it's detachment. When nothing is out of reach, everything starts to lose its value. With material goals exhausted, your focus turns inward. Health, time, legacy. You begin investing in things you ignored before. Mental clarity, emotional depth, inner peace. You try to meditate away the numbness. You seek purpose in charity, in wellness, in impact. But here's the twist. Money never taught you how to feel. You climbed the wealth ladder, but skipped the soul work. Now the only thing left to conquer is yourself. And that's the one opponent your balance sheet can't fight. You must learn to live again. Not as a builder of wealth, but as a human searching for meaning. $100,000 when money becomes meaningless and time becomes the ultimate currency. At this level, everything becomes effortless, and that's the problem. You no longer chase anything. Cars, buy them. Homes, wire the funds. Vacations, book now, think later. But with no friction, there's no thrill. You've reached the top, and the view is boring. Challenges vanish. Wins feel shallow. You expected ecstasy, but you got silence. And in that silence, you meet the truth. Money doesn't stimulate the soul. When everything is easy, nothing feels earned. You're no longer living, you're gliding. And gliding over time becomes a quiet form of emotional decay. This isn't freedom, it's numbness in disguise. You're richer than 99.99% of humanity, but you feel more isolated than ever. You can't relate to the average person anymore. Their problems seem distant, their joy feels naive, and among your financial peers, everyone's posturing. No one's honest. You're on the peak of a mountain no one else can climb, and it's cold up here. You don't need anything, yet you miss wanting. You don't crave experiences, you've exhausted them. What you crave now is feeling. But money numbed you. You gained power and lost emotion. You bought freedom, and it cost you wonder. There's no hunger left. The cruel irony? Many here would trade it all to be 25 again. Not for more time to make money, but to feel again, to fail, to risk, to fall in love without prenups and portfolio considerations. They'd pay $100 million for the fire they once had, and you still do. But if you waste it, you'll arrive here with full accounts and an empty chest. Time is the real currency, and it depreciates fast. You can't buy it back. You can only use it, wisely, fiercely, and without guarantee of return. Money can't save you from that truth. Money can't buy youth, but it can buy back opportunity. If you know how to use it. The truly wealthy don't regret the grind. They regret not living at the right time. They spent their youth building wealth, then spent that wealth trying to recapture youth. It's a cruel loop. Once they reach the top, they look back and realize the best years weren't when they had the most money, but when they had the most energy, the most ambition, the most fire. They didn't lose money, they lost chances to be alive. And by the time they can afford everything, what they crave most is what they sacrificed. The freedom to live with reckless passion. You can buy anything, except that first $10 victory. You'll never recreate that raw thrill of breaking your own limits. No price tag can restore the innocence of early struggle. That's why the ultra-rich keep investing, keep launching projects, keep risking. Not because they need to, but because they're chasing that first high. The feeling of momentum, of defying odds, of shocking themselves. Wealth dulls those edges. The only way to feel again is to create a new frontier. Money won't bring back the past, but it can fund your next resurrection, if you have the guts to make it matter. Here's the truth most will never hear. Money is not the goal, it's the tool. And if you use it wrong, you'll have everything but fulfillment. The poor think money solves problems. The rich know money only amplifies them. You must use wealth to buy time, creation, experience, authenticity. If not, you'll drown in distractions and call it comfort. The real flex isn't a mansion. It's doing what you want, when you want, with people who ignite your soul. You can reclaim purpose, but only if you stop mistaking wealth for meaning. Money is fuel. You're the fire, or you're just burning out. The final truth. Your first 10K is worth more than your last $10 million. You might laugh at the idea that 10K could ever be more valuable than $10. But think again. That first $10 changes everything. Not because of what it can buy, but because of what it makes you believe. It's the moment you stop being a victim and start being a builder. The world didn't change. You did. You earned control. You saw proof that effort leads to power. You began to choose your direction instead of reacting to circumstance. $10 doesn't make you rich, but it makes you dangerous. And dangerous people reshape their lives, regardless of where they start. Your last $10 million doesn't make you stronger. The journey that got you there does. Real strength is forged in sacrifice. Every skipped party, every hard no, every night you hustled while others rested, that's where power is born. By the time you reach $10, the applause fades, but you remember the nights no one saw. Those are the moments that built your spine. Not the wire transfers, not the assets. Those didn't change you. They just revealed what was already there. You aren't strong because you're rich. You're strong because you earned what no one could give you, self-respect. So stop worshiping money. Start mastering it. Money isn't the destination. Freedom is. Use money to buy time, to buy truth, to buy the ability to say no. Spend it on becoming more of who you are, not proving it to people who don't matter. If you're still grinding to your first 10K, know this. You're holding something the wealthy envy. A blank slate, a future unwritten, a chance to build meaning into every dollar. That's the real wealth. The numbers may change, but the mission is eternal. Build a life that doesn't collapse when the market does. Money is not your savior, it's your test. The poor are crushed by scarcity, but the wealthy, they're slowly devoured by illusion. From 10K to $100 million, every milestone exposes a brutal truth. You don't rise above the system, you trade one set of chains for another. And unless you break the mindset that money will fix everything, you'll die with a full account and an empty life. The game was never about how much, it was always about how well. So stop chasing numbers, start designing freedom, spend with precision, invest with soul. Live like money is your servant, not your master, because if you fail this test, you won't lose your fortune, you'll lose your fire, and that's far worse.